Hey, hopefully you did well on your quiz. On today, we're going to be talking about multiplying fractions. You will need out a piece of scratch paper. You can get out your math book, but it's not required since I will be showing you all of the pages. And if you do want to follow along in your math book, it's page 312. So go ahead and pause this video, get out scratch paper, and make sure that you're ready to take notes, and then you can unpause when you're ready. So when you're multiplying fractions, it's super duper easy. Mainly you are using the same rules from yesterday. So quick review. Remember, if you have two positives, a positive times a positive equals a positive. A negative times a negative is also a positive. A lot of people get that one wrong. But remember, he's asleep, so he's happy. And then the only way that you're going to get a negative is if you have a positive and a negative. So he's sad because he has an eye infection. And that would work the other way as well. A negative times a positive would equal a negative. So you're going to use those three rules when you multiply fractions. What this is telling you is when you multiply fractions, you're really just multiplying the numerators and then multiplying the denominators. So if I did 1/2 times 2/3, I would do 1 times 2 equals 2, 2 times 3 equals 6, and then I would simplify. So on today, we're going to look at the first example. So this is what you're writing on your paper. You would just write a number 1. Hopefully you labeled your paper. If you didn't, go ahead and take a second to put multiplying fractions. And then today's date, which is the 8th. 9/8/16. Okay, so on your paper, just write out your problem, 1/2 times 1/3. And again, it's super easy. You're just multiplying the numerator, so 1 times 1 is 1. And then multiply the denominators. 2 times 3 is 6. That can't be simplified, so that's our final answer. Now on number 2, we're starting to work with negatives. So before I do anything, I want to use my rule. Positive times a negative is a negative. So I'm going to go ahead and write out this problem. Again, you should do this on your notebook paper. And I know my answer is going to be negative, and I don't want to forget that negative, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Whenever you have a whole number and you don't have a denominator, remember that you can make it a fraction by putting a 1 underneath, because you're not changing the value of that number. The value of that number before was 2, and this fraction also equals 2, because this means 2 divided by 1, which equals 2. So from there, we're just going straight across. Looking at our numerators, 2 times 3 is 6, and technically it would be 2 times -3 equals -6, but we already have that negative there. 1 times 4 is 4, and then we simplify. You simplify just like normal. 4 goes into 6 one time, but I'm going to make it -1 since our fraction is negative. 2 is left over. Keep the 4. And then that simplifies to -1 1/2. On number 3, same rule as before, positive, negative equals a negative. So I'm going to go ahead and write out the problem, as you should do on your notebook paper as well. And I'm going to go ahead and stick the negative in the answer so I don't forget. So on this one, again, straight across, 2 times -3 is -6. 7 times 8 is 56. And then I can see that that can be simplified. So if we want to go ahead and divide them both by 2, -6 divided by 2 is still going to be -3 over 28. Now, one quick thing I do want to mention, if you look in your book, which you don't have to, you can just look on this page, you can see that they wrote the negative sign in front of the entire fraction. They made the negative sign even with this fraction bar. The reason that they do that is because this negative doesn't really just go with the 3. It could go with the 28. So essentially, this fraction is the same as this fraction, because they both still have a negative. It doesn't really matter which number the negative goes with. The reason I ended up putting it with the numerators is because I put the negative with the numerator here. But again, it doesn't really go with the numerator. That's just where it's stuck in. If you wanted to put it with the denominator, you could. If you wanted to make it even with a fraction mark, so it looks like it goes with both numbers, you can. Because essentially it's just going with that entire fraction. On the got it problems, I want you to go ahead and pause this video, copy down A, B, and C, and then solve them. Once you are done, unpause to check your answers. Please make sure that you're actually pausing the video and trying these out, because otherwise you're never going to learn them on your own. So again, copy them down, pause the video, work them out, unpause. So on letter A, you should multiply your numerators. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10, and that cannot be simplified, so 3/10 was your answer. On this one, I'm going to work it out down here. So we had 2/3 times -4. So first, my rule is I have a positive negative, so it's going to be a negative. And then second, just like the example above that we just did, this is a whole number. So you should have, drew a fraction bar with a 1 underneath to change it to a fraction. I'm going to go ahead and put the negative. 2 times -4 is -8. 3 times 1 is 3. And I want to simplify. 3 goes into 8 2 times, so I'm going to put -2 since the fraction was already negative. 2 left over. Keep the denominator. And then letter C had 2 negatives. He's happy because he's asleep, so it's going to be a positive. -1 times -3 is positive 3. -3 times -7 is positive 21. And then that could be simplified by dividing by 3. That would equal 1/7. On the following page, we're going to look at now multiplying mixed numbers. On example 4, go ahead and copy this one down. We have 1/2 times 4 2/5. So when you're multiplying fractions, you do have to go ahead and change this fraction to an improper fraction, because I can't multiply the numerators yet and the denominators, because I would just have this whole number hanging out by itself. So, first step, I'm going to go ahead and do the MAD. Remember, that means multiply, add, and then keep the denominator. So if I multiply, that equals 20. If I add, that equals 22, and keep the denominator. From there, I can go straight across and multiply your numerators. 1 times 22 is 22. 2 times 5 is 10, and then we're going to simplify. 10 goes into 22 2 times with 2 left over. Keep the denominator, and then finally divide those both by 2 to simplify, which gives us 2 1/5. Now you can see here they did it 2 different ways. One is just saying that you can do it in your head as mental math. Right now, I'm not going to focus too much on how to do that, because we've got to get down the first way before we can try to do it in our head. So, now I want you to go ahead, again, you're going to copy these 3 problems down on your own paper, pause the video, then copy them down. Try the problems, and then come back to check your answers. Again, I'm going to stress to you how important it is that you're pausing to try these on your own. If you're simply watching me doing them, it's not going to help you out. Okay, so on the first one, you should have changed 8 4/9 to an improper fraction. So here, doing the MAD, multiply, add, keep the denominator. So when I multiply, I get 72 plus 4 is 76, keep the 9. Then multiply the numerators, multiply the denominator. 36 goes into 72 2 times. Do that real quick. 72, right? Yep, okay. And then 4 left over, keep the 36. And then finally, I am going to simplify. So 4 can go into both of those numbers. Remember to keep your whole number. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So 2 and 1/9. I'm going to go ahead and erase that one so I can work out letter E. If you need to pause, pause. 5 and 1/3, I'll go ahead and do the MAD. So multiply is 15, add is 16, keep the denominator. We're going to write 3 over 1 since it's a whole number, I have to change it. And I'm multiplying the numerators. So you get 48 over 3. And then if you need to do long division here, you can. You might be able to do this in your head, but I'm going to work it out just to show you. So remember, the top number goes inside of the house, the second number outside the house. 3 goes into 4 one time. 3 goes into 18 6 times. And that's the end. So we would end up with just 16. Okay, and then the last one, letter F. So before I do this, I notice negative times a negative is going to be asleep, so positive. Then I'm going to do the MAD. So for right now, if you want to just drop the negatives because you know it's going to be positive, you can. Or what I do when I do the MAD and it is a negative is I just ignore the negative until the end and attach it. So multiply 8 times 1 is 8 plus 7 is 15 over 8. Then the second one, do the MAD. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Keep the negative. And then from there, multiplying straight across. So on this one, we're going to have to do 15 times 12. So I'm going to go ahead and work it out up here. And we get 180. And then 8 times 5 is 40. 40 can go into 184 times. And real quick, you can use the zero trick. Pretend that the 0 is not here and pretend that this 0 is not here. And really say 4 can go into 18 4 times, which would leave me 2 left over to get to 16, but really that's going to be 20 left over. And then over 40, which simplifies to 4 and 1/2. On the following page, again, I want you to go ahead and pause this video. You're going to copy questions 1, 2, and 3. Try them, unpause when you're ready to check. So on the first one, you should have went straight across and equal 2/9. On the next one, it's going to equal a positive. So we're going to go ahead and ignore the negatives. 1 times 8 is 8. 4 times 9 is 36. And then I'm going to simplify by dividing by 4. That gives me 2. That gives me 9. So 2/9 again. And then this time I have a mixed number, so I have to do the MAD method. Multiply, add, keep the denominator. So when I multiply, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Keep the denominator. Then go straight across to get 18/12, and then you should have simplified by saying 12 can go into 18 one time. 6 left over 12, which gives me 1 and 1/2. Okay. And then the very last thing I would like you to do today is on this page, you're going to go ahead and pause once again. You're going to copy questions 1 through 9 and then come back to check. Okay, so again, you can pause to check your answers real quick before you do that. I want to talk about 6 and 9. On number 6, you should have been very careful because it was a positive and a negative, so make sure your answer is negative. And then the last one, number 9, make sure that you changed your mixed number to a improper fraction properly. So again, pause this video, check, and then check the board for further directions.